then she won, and you go, how dare you?
Also, and she probably brought over her American Conquer, so they were probably twice the size. Do you know what I mean? Like these massive Texan Conquers.
No,
Against our little British one.
They supply. You don't get to bring your own Conquer.
It was a joke.
I know it was a joke. It's a serious matter. They supply because they supply all the Conquers, and King Conquer, the steel Conquer man, was involved in the supply of Conquers, and there is like an adjacent cheating scandal that he in fact specially marked the strings of the hardened nuts to make sure he got them.
So you're saying it's not a Conquer cheat, it's a conspiracy?
It's a Conquer conspiracy.
This thing just gets bigger and bigger.
Is there a huge prize money? Why does one care that much?
It's almost like you don't have autumn in your country. It's the only reason we live through these dreadful months. Once apple season's over, it's Conquer season.
I also love that King Conquer, he's 82.
Yeah.
Right? That is an amazing age to still be an athlete.
So the sports round, you've absolutely answered everything correctly. This week, German national Thomas Tuchel was officially announced as the new manager of the England men's football team. The arrival of Thomas Tuchel could be just what England needs. Think of it like the car industry. Germany offers high-end performance and efficiency, and England hasn't produced championships. The overall winner was an American, and there were accusations of cheating when self-styled King Conquer David Jenkins was found to have an artificial conquer in his pocket. David Jenkins called his accusers sore losers. And come on, David, it's the World Conquer Championships, you're all losers. David Jenkins was accused of using steel conkers, and coincidentally, steel conkers was Hugo's nickname at school. And at the end of this week's news quiz, Team Trash have 7 points and Team Turd have 9 points. They're the winners! And before we leave you, just a quick reminder, do keep listening to Radio 4, as coming up after the Archers is part 17 of our landmark 400-part history of the mantelpiece. This week, beveled cornice work. So, that's the end of the news quiz. I've been Lucy Porter. Thanks for listening. Goodbye! Taking part in the news quiz were Ria Lena, Deliso Chaponda, Andrew Maxwell and Hugo Rifkind. In the chair was me, Lucy Porter, and additional material.
And the news quiz is back next Friday with Ian Smith as the guest host. Any Questions comes from the Crescent Arts Centre in Belfast this afternoon, and we'll be joining Alex Forsyth for that after the news. And then Anita Anand will be taking your calls on the issues they discuss in Any Answers. That's at 2 o'clock. Just before the news now, let's take a look at this afternoon's weather with Ben Rich. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Danielle. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you. A weekend of two halves, really. For most of us, today is turning into a very pleasant autumn day with some good spells of sunshine and relatively light winds. Tomorrow, a very different story. Our first named storm of the season, Storm Ashley, a deepening area of low pressure, deepening very rapidly, actually, as it approaches our shores from the west over the next 24 hours. And so the Met Office has issued an amber warning for the western side of Scotland for most of the day tomorrow. The risk of severe gales, gusts of 70 to 80 miles per hour, could well bring some travel disruptions, some damage and some coastal flooding as well. But let's start with this afternoon's forecast. We have seen some outbreaks of rain today, becoming increasingly confined to eastern England and then tending to clear. So for the majority this afternoon it is fine. Spells of sunshine northeast of Scotland, but through the second half of the night we will see cloud and rain spinning in from the west. With that, strengthening winds, western coasts likely to see gales through the second half of the night, and it will be turning milder as the night wears on as well. So as we head into tomorrow, across the southeast of England and East Anglia, a dry start. We will see rain arriving as the day wears on, that rain sticking around really through the afternoon. It will be fairly windy for the southwest of England, so again, there is that risk of damage, disruption, coastal flooding as well. Stay tuned to the forecast.
Ben, thank you. Ben Rich there. On 92 to 95 FM and on BBC Sounds, this is BBC Radio 4.
BBC News at 1 o'clock. This is Vigilalis.
Israel says a drone has been launched towards Benjamin Netanyahu's home as dozens are killed in airstrikes on Gaza. Scotland Yard is facing fresh scrutiny of its handling of sexual assault allegations against Mohammed Al-Fayed. NATO fighter jets have been scrambled after a suspected Russian drone was identified approaching Romanian territory. A residence of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is understood to have been targeted in a drone strike by Hezbollah. Israeli officials said the group unleashed dozens of rockets and several drones from Lebanon into northern Israel, killing one person. One device was directed at Mr. Netanyahu's weekend home in Caesarea. Neither he nor his wife were there and no one was hurt. In Gaza, Israeli airstrikes and artillery fire are reported to have killed dozens of Palestinians. Our correspondent Jonah Fisher is following developments from Jerusalem.
The Hamas-run health ministry says more than 33 people were killed in Israeli strikes in northern Gaza overnight. Social media footage, which we've been unable to verify, shows more than a dozen bodies on the floor of a hospital. The hospital director says the wards are overwhelmed. In another of northern Gaza's hospitals, Dr. Marwan Al-Sultan told us that 2 injured patients have died this morning after the power failed.
We have very complex situation. All the hospital is surrounded by the Israeli forces, and they attack the hospital, second and third floor.
Figure of resistance and struggle. Under Sinwar's leadership, ties between Hamas and Iran had deepened. So his death is undeniably a blow to Iran, even if the consequences of the October the 7th attack on Israel, which Sinwar masterminded, have drawn Tehran more directly into open conflict with Israel than the Iranian leadership may have bargained for. Iran and the world is still awaiting Israel's response to the ballistic missile attack that Tehran launched. For now at least, there seems little end in sight to the cycle of escalation between Israel and Iran, including its regional proxies.
The Crown Prosecution Service has confirmed that Scotland Yard already asked for charging decisions against Mohammed Al-Fayed for 2 of the 21 women who accused him of sexual assault while he was alive. The former owner of Harrods and Fulham Football Club died last year, aged 94. More women have come forward with allegations after a BBC documentary about the billionaire aired last month.
Whose evidence could have potentially provided corroboration. Zoe Billingham, who was previously Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, told Today that Scotland Yard had questions to answer.
21 women came forward to the Met with presumably very similar allegations about a wealthy man in a position of extreme power and authority, and yet nothing happened again.
Since a BBC film last month heard testimony from former Harrods employees who said the billionaire sexually assaulted or raped them, 40 more women have contacted the Met to report abuse, with at least 65 contacting the BBC itself. Scotland Yard said it was now carrying out a full review of all allegations reported to it about Al-Fayed.
Home Office figures show that 10 boats crossed the Channel from France yesterday, bringing 647 migrants to the UK. More than 28,000 people have made it to the UK on small boats so far this year. The French authorities say at least 45 people have died in 2024 trying to make the journey. 4 NATO fighter jets have been scrambled after a suspected Russian drone was spotted approaching Romanian territory over the Black Sea. Cargo ships on their way to and from Ukraine use Romanian waters to evade a Russian blockade, and Ukrainian pilots are being trained to fly F-16 fighters nearby. Our Central Europe correspondent Nick Thorpe has the details.
According to a statement from the Romanian military, the small aerial target was picked up on radar at 2:30 in the morning, 45 kilometres off Romania's Black Sea coast, and crossed over Romanian territory 90 minutes later. 2 Spanish F-18 fighters and 2 Romanian F-16s were scrambled as part of NATO's air policing mission to the Black Sea. The suspected Russian drone disappeared at 4:30 in the morning, about 50 kilometres from Borcha, where training began recently for Ukrainian pilots to fly F-16s. NATO has expanded its presence at bases in Romania since the Russian invasion of Ukraine 30 months ago. Marine shipping data suggests there were no cargo ships in Romanian waters travelling to or from Ukraine at the time of the incident.
The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, of the last government,
After talks with China's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Mr. Lammy said more diplomacy was needed, not less, confirming they have discussed areas on which the two countries disagree, including the sovereignty of Taiwan and human rights in Hong Kong and Xinjiang. The Metropolitan Police says a man with a property empire worth £1.5 million has pleaded guilty to supplying drugs and money laundering. Richard Baxter, who is 50, will be sentenced in December. Our correspondent Ellie Price reports.
Richard Baxter gave no fixed address to Kingston Crown Court, despite the fact police discovered he owned a property portfolio worth £1.5 million. Specialist officers investigating criminal gangs in London.
Their first win in 6 games in all competitions. Erik ten Hag remains sure that his job isn't under threat at Old Trafford because he doesn't feel the pressure from his bosses.
You know, it's only coming from the media, from you guys. For some of you, let's say this, not all of you, but some of you, bringing up stories, creating fairy tales, making the noise, bringing lies, because I know we are on one page in this clip.
In the pick of the Scottish Premiership games, it's first against second as Celtic take on Aberdeen at 3 o'clock, whilst it's currently Brighton 0, Manchester United 1 in the Women's Super League. In sailing, Great Britain are looking to keep their America's Cup hopes alive with the day's first race just getting underway. New Zealand have moved into a 6-2 lead in the best of 13 series, but Britain's Sir Ben Ainsley says they still have belief.
The team are great. You know, they've fought the whole way through this competition, being slightly on the back foot early doors in the prelims and around robins, and then really making some huge games to get us this far. And we've seen in the history of the Cup some amazing comebacks. I know the rest of the team know that we've just got to keep fighting all the way.
New Zealand have been set 107 runs to beat India on tomorrow's final day of their first Test match. India had been bowled out for just 46 in their first innings, and the tourists posted 402, only for India to rally. The big game in Rugby Union's Premiership sees the leaders Bristol host Saracens just after 3 o'clock. And in Formula 1, Max Verstappen will start this evening's US Grand Prix sprint race on pole position.
John Wilkinson. A small village in mid-Wales has become the first telephone exchange area in the UK where all homes have direct access to fibre-optic broadband. Residents of Llan-y-Bryn Mawr in Paris say the much faster internet connection has cut website loading times from minutes to seconds. Here's our Wales correspondent Thomas Morgan.
In the digital age, rural communities have often lagged behind when it comes to improvements to internet connections. Residents in Llan-y-Bryn Mawr, a small village in the countryside of Powys, mid-Wales, however, have had theirs transformed, with around 600 properties now having access to speeds of up to 1 gigabyte a second. Locals say before the upgrade, opening one page online took almost 10 minutes, but it now takes seconds. An engineering challenge like this has never been done before. 60 kilometres or 37 miles of overhead cable has been erected as part of a joint effort by the BT-owned broadband network Openreach and a UK government broadband voucher scheme.
The headlines again. Israel says a drone has been launched towards Benjamin Netanyahu's home as dozens are killed in airstrikes on Gaza. Scotland Yard is facing fresh scrutiny of its handling of sexual assault allegations against Mohammed Al-Fayed. NATO fighter jets have been scrambled after a suspected Russian drone was identified approaching Romanian territory. BBC News.
With Vicky Alice.
On BBC iPlayer, a cop who smashes car into a guy trying to save the planet.
Allegedly.
I don't think we should touch this.
Calderwood identified me before he died.
Starring Adil Akhtar and Michael Sokka.
You don't know the whole story, though. I'm going to declare this a critical incident now. They're charging him with murder.
He likes to think he's controlling things and he's a show. The new series of Show Trial.
There's something else I feel I should mention. Enjoy this.
Watch all episodes on BBC iPlayer.
Is it possible to break all 10 commandments in just one weekend? We're going to do our very best to find out here on 3. But now it's time for Any Questions with Alex Forsyth.
Hello and welcome to Belfast. We are in the south